Hi, made a few bowls and now I want to show you how to trim them. There are lots of different kinds of tools that are available, and just about anything sharp can trim clay. You have to wait till the piece is leather hard. Let me show you a couple of the tools I use. This is my favorite, but anyway, it's just a nice little tool. Then there are larger ones. There are these which have two different sharp ends and many different kinds of shapes to them. I made the other day. Let's see if it's ready. Oh yeah, it's perfect. See, it hasn't changed color. It's still leather hard. It can move just a little bit. It's stuck to the board. So what do? Well, you can wait or put your fingers way down at the bottom and start lifting and turning. And it should pop off and release. Now, if this is still wet, sticky, don't trim yet. Wait a little while. Leave it upside down and let it firm up this way on a board, and then come back to it. Now, where do you want the foot? You want the foot to start right about a third in, and so you put your finger there and mark it with a little scratch from your fingernail. Then you feel the bowl and you go, okay, it's nice and even all the way down to here. This is where I've got thickness that I need to trim away. So start by making sure your wheel's off before you put the pedal down. Make sure the wheel's clean. Now you have to center it. You see, it's not in the middle. If I tried to trim at this point, it would be all over the place. So what you want to do is get that part right about here, right in the center of the wheel, so it's not wiggling around. Now there's a technique called tap centering, where I always put my hand here just in case I hit a little too hard. But the wheel has to be going at a decent speed, and you just tap it a few times as it comes around, and it'll go on center. Centrifugal force helps it. Another way is put your finger in front of you, and you see how it's hitting on one side and not the other? So let it come around, and when it hits, stop the wheel and push it towards the center. And you keep repeating this. And you know something? You really can't tell if it's on center, if it's going slowly. If it's going quickly, you can really see it. Instead of my finger, I'm going to use my thumbs. So it's hitting, 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 stop, give a little push. Hit, push, almost. There, now it's on center. So now I'm going to take a little bit of clay. And it should be plastic clay, not sticky and not hard. Plastic, I mean, you can bend it without it cracking. Make a coil and put 3 pieces around the piece. Same distance all the way around. Hold the piece in place because you spent all this time centering. Push the clay down against the wheel head. You can see how it pushes it up against the pot and holds it. And once you have all 3 on there, check it, and then come back and finish holding it on. Okay. So, next step is to make a circle. So you take your needle tool, aim it away from the movement of the wheel, and you slowly drop that needle tool down. That's where my foot's going to be. And I'll move it in. You go, well, that might be a little small. It's really easy to erase it. And bring it down a little bit further. That feels better. So I'm going to use this tool. And this edge, sometimes when you cut it off, it'll be irregular. So what you want to do is start at the top and trim down. Another thing you have to be aware of is it's kind of like peeling a carrot. You know, you want to get that blade so it's just at the right angle. If it's straight up and down, it's not going to trim. If it's like that, it's not going to trim very much. But as you tilt it, all of a sudden it'll start trimming a lot. Now remember, your position is important. My legs are wrapped around the wheel, my arms are steady, and I'm holding really tight. Start at the top, let it go around a bunch of times before you move your hands. And if the clay's right for trimming, it'll peel off like this. If it's too wet, it'll stick back on. If it's too dry, you'll get clouds of dust, and you probably shouldn't bother with that pot. You should just make another. So I'm just exposing that foot. It's like Michelangelo creating a sculpture. He always said that the figure was inside the stone. This foot is inside the form. Now when I made that inside just exactly the way I want it. A nice beautiful curve, so it's easy. Just follow that curve, and I know I'm not going to trim through. So there's the foot. Now I'm going to go in. Now you can tell how thick a piece is by the sound. If you tap it, that's about even right now. As you trim, you'll find the sound will change. It'll get a little lower. So I'm defining that. Now, everything happens on the right side, just like when you're throwing. You go from the outside to the inside. So I'm going to put the tool down and take a little bit off at a time. I think I'm going to switch tools to a little smaller one. I could trim this pretty quickly with this big tool, but I have a little more control with a smaller tool. So here's the little one. It's a triangle and straight side on one side and round on the other. The round takes a lot of clay off at once. The straight side refines and smooths. So I'm going to go from the center to the outside, or the outside to the center. Now, while I've been doing this, I haven't touched the very top because I want that to be the highest. So when I put this down on the table, that's going to be higher than the center and it's going to sit well. Now, I don't know if you can hear this. Not really. It's usually a higher tone and lower tone when it's higher tone when it's thicker, lower tone when it's thinner. And if your finger goes down, stop trimming. I've got a little bit more I can take. Now check this out. This is curving down. It's not absolutely flat. I'm trying to make that wall even all the way through with just this bump here that's the foot. You can even stop it and give it a little slight push if the clay is soft enough. If it's soft and it's thin there, your finger will go down a little bit, so stop trimming that. I'm going to go a little bit more. Now this foot isn't this thin up at the base, it's wider. It's shaped almost like a V, so it supports the bowl. And there's a small amount of clay touching the tabletop. Now once I have this formed, I'm going to look at the outside profile and just clean that up a little bit. I'm just going to trim the very top of this just slightly. Now this clay has grog in it, so when you trim, you'll get little holes happening. Let me see, there was one where it coming around. Anyway, little holes, and so you want to smooth that off. Otherwise, the glaze isn't going to go in them, and you'll have little pits in your glaze. If you want it smooth, come back with your credit card and just burnish it a little bit with the side of the card. Now that'll smooth it off. I'm going to do that on the inside of the foot too. Round off this top edge, and I have a finished foot. One thing I do need to do now is sign it. So make sure you sign all your work. Take it off and try not to distort it. Remember, when you're handling unfired work, you have to handle it really gently. So if I just grabbed it on two sides, it could warp it if this is soft. So I'm going to put my whole hand on it and pop it off, turn it over, and feel it. Now, it feels pretty good. It's pretty even, and the weight feels right. So here's an untrimmed bowl, and here's the trim bowl. Now, sometimes that lip will get marred a little bit, so take a sponge right after you finish taking it off and just clean off that mark. And then make sure the board that you put it down on is clean. Some people even put it on some newspaper and put it away to dry. Now, after trimming, you have all these. Why throw it out? Now, a lot of studios will have a big bucket where you recycle the clay. You just put it all into one big bucket, and then some poor person has this huge job of digging it out, drying it out, sometimes putting it through a pug mill. It's a lot of work. I much rather do it as I go. Now, look how much clay I've got. You just bunch it up a little bit. Now, if it's a little dry, you can squeeze a little water on it before you do this. This is still leather hard. Look how much clay came off that one little hole. Then you take this and dip it in your water. Squeeze it out. Now, when I put it back together, I just barely put it together, so there's lots of airspace in there. When I dip it in the water, all the water gets in between all those pieces of clay, and when I squish it back together like this, there's water in there. And in about half an hour, I can wedge this back up and use it, instead of having to have a big pile of stuff to do later.